The HOA president slapped a fake mandatory buyback notice on my home, stacked it into an $87,000 lien, and came one signature away from pushing my bank to foreclose on the lake house my wife and I built from a $5 shack. She forged votes, turned petty fines into a weapon-sent hired muscle to tear out my dock in the dark, and walked around like my front yard already belonged to her next development deal. What she did not see coming was a rusted iron pin from 1895, a forgotten deed, and two very patient people who finally ran out of patience. My name is Lane Dunford, and this is what happens when a man who fixes everything gets treated like the thing they get to break. 10 years earlier, my wife Jean and I bought the ugliest shack on the prettiest stretch of Rain Cove Lake for $5, partly as a joke, mostly as a promise. The place leaned. The dock sagged. Critters had squatters' rights, but the water was calm, and the shoreline felt like ours the second we stepped onto it. Jean looked at me and said, "If anyone can make this home, it is you." So we did nights and weekends, scraped knuckles, stiff backs, coffee at midnight, cheap tools, overheating all of it, until that shack turned into a cedar and glass house with a solid dock, a small workshop, big windows catching sunrise on the water. Some website later guessed the property around $5 million because of the lot. And deep water access. We laughed, tapped the framed $5 bill we kept on the wall, and never once thought about selling. Then Lauren Lucas noticed. One quiet Tuesday, I was on the dock replacing a board buddy. Our old dog dozing by my boots when a white SUV rolled up my drive like it was patrolling conquered land. Door swings open, woman. In beige sharp bob. Sharper attitude queer. Clipboard, held like a badge. "Lane Dunford," she calls like reading charges. "That is me," I say. Buddy gives a low growl. "I am Lauren Lucas, president of the Rain Cove County, HOA. She says like that alone explains why she is standing in my yard. She hands me a document titled Mandatory Community Cohesion and Property Reacquisition Program. It says we have 72 hours to sign our property back to the HOA for the original purchase price, plus nominal credits. $5 and insult. I read it twice, look up, ask, "You are offering us $5 for the house my wife and I spent a decade rebuilding." She gives this small, practiced smile. "Those are the bylaws you agreed to. If you decline, the HOA will take further action to protect community standards." Then she leaves confident that the old man at the end of the lane will fold. That night, Jean and I sit at the oak table and read the actual bylaws front to back. Highlighter out, glasses on. And there it is in plain English, a clause about abandoned homes, fair market value, due process. Nothing about forced $5 buybacks. It is not a misunderstanding. It is a con printed on nice paper. Jean taps the fake notice and says, "She thinks you are old and scared." We decide not to be. We ignore it. That is when her further action starts. White envelopes bloom on our door like fungus. Non-conforming mailbox, $100, because ours looks like a lighthouse. Unauthorized aquatic vessel color, $200, because my blue kayak offends her beige. Improper decorative lighting, overly expressive dock, non-compliant lawn. Everyone cites some stretched bylaw number and adds to an outstanding balance. Jean grabs a fresh folder, writes "Book of Stupid" on it, and slides every notice inside. At first it is petty, almost funny. The kind of thing you roll your eyes at and move on from. But as that balance climbs, I can see what she is doing. She is building a paper trail to point at later and say, "Look how non-compliant they are." The bigger thing arrives in a calm voice from my bank. I am in the workshop when my phone rings. "Mr. Dunford, this is Mark from Lakeside Community Bank," he says, polite but tight. "We have received notice of a lien in the amount of $87,000 from your HOA. Under your loan terms, any lien places you in technical default. If unresolved in 30 days, foreclosure proceedings may begin." And just like that, all her stupid little tickets turn into a loaded gun pointed at our home. We have never missed a payment, not one, and I am standing there with sawdust on my hands, listening to a stranger explain how we might lose everything over a fake program we never agreed to, when I tell Jean. Fear flashes in her eyes for half a second. Then her jaw sets. She drops the book of stupid on the table and says, "Good. Now it is all in one file." I still lie awake that night staring at the ceiling, hearing that word, foreclosure, like it is echoing inside my ribs. The next move proves this is not just about paper. A storm rolls in, hard power drops, the lake turns black and wild. Buddy plants himself at the glass door, growling at something I cannot see. Through the wind, I hear metal scraping down by the dock. Slow, deliberate. Jean says, "Lane, call the sheriff. Do not go down there." And I do call, but I also pick up my flashlight and a tire iron, because there is a line where you are done hiding in your own house. Rain in my face. I walk down the path. 2 silhouettes on my dock, one crouched at the cleats, one standing watch. I hit them with the beam. "Step away from my dock," I say. One lunges, slips straight into the lake. The other bolts into the dark. Deputy shows up later. Shrugs it off as a dispute. Writes a trespass ticket, tells us to get cameras. He is not wrong, but he is not the one being hunted on his own shoreline. Lying in bed after listening to the storm, I remember something the old owner told me the day we bought the place. "There is an iron pin by that big oak," he said. "Line older than any HOA. Do not let them bluff you off that water." Back then, I smiled. Now I listen. Next morning, I take a cheap metal detector to that oak buddy padding along beside me, and I start sweeping. Bottle caps, nails, then one solid tone. I dig down and hit a rusted pin stamped 1895. Jean and I drive to the county records office, ask for the old plats tied to that survey. In a dusty book, we find the original deed for our lot. It gives the owner exclusive riparian rights to the shoreline and the first 50 feet of water, and says those rights supersede any future covenants or associations, which means their dock rules. Their boat rules their shoreline. Threats never legally applied to our property. Standing in that hallway with a certified copy in my hand, I feel my patience sharpen. We go home and shift gears. I hide cameras in a birdhouse over the driveway, in a fake rock by the porch and the dock posts. Jean sets up her drone with a 4K camera ready to go. We put up a sign, "Private Shoreline, deed recorded 1895. Trespassers will be filmed." I repaint the lighthouse mailbox neon pink. And yes, that was for my own soul. 3 quiet nights go by. On the 4th, just before dawn, John shakes me awake on the couch in front of the monitors. A dark truck slides down the lane with its headlights off, towing a workboat with a winch system. 2 men launch motor straight for our dock loop, a thick cable around the main piling, and start the winch. This is not vandalism. This is grand theft. I hit record on every camera and call 911. "This is Lane Dunford. I say calm now. 2 men are attempting to remove my dock. I have live video. I am sending the link. Jean sends it and sends up the drone, letting it hover low. So its lights and lens stare straight at them. They freeze. Sirens come fast this time. Deputies run down the path, guns out, and those 2 geniuses end that morning cuffed on our shore. Later, the truck traces back to a contractor on the HOA's payroll. Now, it is not a theory, it is a pattern. We gather everything: fake buyback, petty fines, fraudulent lien forged-looking proxies, dock footage, the 1895 deed. And we do the thing people like Lauren never expect. We drag it all into the light. We formally demand an emergency meeting of the HOA with every homeowner invited. The clubhouse fills up, fluorescent lights buzzing, coffee-burned people tense. Lauren opens with this polished speech about misinformation and protecting everyone's investment, even flashes our home value on screen, like wanting to keep your land is suspicious. When she is done, I plug in my laptop and press play. The room watches those men hook my dock, watches the drone catch their faces, watches the deputies arrest them. Lauren says, "This is concerning, but there is no evidence this involves the HOA." Jean steps up, walks them through the timeline. The $87,000 lien, filed days before the attempted dock theft, built entirely on nonsense fines. The proxy votes Lauren claims gave her authority. The document examiner's note calling many of those signatures forged. Neighbors stand up. "I never signed that. I was out of town. I voted no." You can feel the spell break. Then we show the 1895 deed and explain that our shoreline sits outside her rulebook. And then we point to the public records of a developer buying up lots needing our strip to complete his luxury marina meeting with Lauren while she tries to bully us out. It does not take long after that. Investigators get involved. Our lawyer lays it all out in court. The judge reads. The deed looks at the fake program fines, lien forgeries, the contractor link, the video of the dock job, and takes it apart piece by piece. The lien is void and ordered, wiped from our title. The HOA is sanctioned. The entire board is removed, and a receiver is appointed to run new elections and clean up the mess. Lauren walks out smaller, and I walk out breathing like a normal person again. The $5 shack we turned into a home is still ours. The dock is still too joyful. The pink mailbox is still standing, and the lake is quiet. But here is the part people argue about. Even after everything, a couple of neighbors pulled me aside and said, "You could have kept it quiet," or "You made the neighborhood look bad." Like the real problem was that I refused to be quiet while someone with a title tried to steal my house on paper. Because I will tell you, this much silence is exactly what people like Lauren count on. They count on you being too tired, too polite, too worried about resale value or gossip to call them what they are. The only reason our story ended with a judge reading out the truth instead of a bank notice on my door is because we documented everything and refused to play nice with corruption dressed up as community. You might not have an 1895 deed or a lake house, but you know the type, the boss, the board member, the neighbor who thinks a little bit of power makes them untouchable. So share it, speak it, put it out there. That is how you make sure the next Lauren thinks twice. And now I want to hear from you. Was I right to drag this into the open, or should I have bowed my head for the sake of appearances? Whose side are you on? And what would you have done if it was your home on that shoreline? Tell me in the comments. And if you have your own HOA horror story or power-tripping neighbor, lay it out below. Because people need to see how this really works.